So, am I live? Yeah, I think I am live. Now, here we go. Trump is now the peace president. I really wanted to say that before I started the video. I don't know what's going on. My camera's not working. I'm trying my best. But in this video, let's take a look at Jesse Waters' Primetime, talking about what Trump is doing around the world to bring peace all the way on the other side of the world. And here in America, the Democrats are going all in, getting arrested just to save illegal immigrants. Like, that's hustling backwards. How are you going to save people who are breaking the law? The best way to save them is to help them get to their country. How about that? Let's take a look at Jesse Waters' Primetime. My internet is slow.
Donald Trump's ordering the Iranians to surrender unconditionally. Last night, he warned everybody to flee the capital, and now Tehran's a ghost town. Surgical strikes target Iranian nuclear scientists and military commanders have taken their toll. Windows have turned to powder, and the lobby of buildings are gone. Overnight, Israel continued to pummel missile and drone infrastructure in the western part of the country. Tel Aviv says they've destroyed over 120 Iranian missile launchers since Thursday. That's about 40% of their missile capacity. They also took out Iran's top general early this morning. He was only at the job for 4 days after his old boss was executed.
That's crazy.
Israel's already slaughtered 11 senior Iranian generals, but the regime is retaliating tonight with a barrage of ballistic missile strikes against the Jewish state. Our very own Trey Yingst just had to duck for cover in Tel Aviv on the 5.
Air defense systems are currently active over Tel Aviv with hundreds of thousands of people into bomb shelters at this moment. Unhooked. Get off. All right, we're going to move. Okay. Stay with us. Stay with us.
What a crazy job. Who would take such a job of going over there where they're fighting and shooting missiles at each other? That man is brave.
Stay with us. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
The IDF says 80 to 90% of Iran's missiles are being intercepted by the Iron Dome and by U.S. missile defense systems in the region. And they have something up their sleeve. Israel says the beeper operation will seem simple compared to what it has in store next. The Israeli ambassador is promising a number of surprises when the dust settles within the next 24 hours. Netanyahu still isn't ruling out an assassination strike against the Ayatollah.
It's not going to escalate the conflict. It's going to end the conflict. We've had half a century of conflict spread by this regime that terrorizes everyone in the Middle East, has bombed the Aramco oil fields in Saudi Arabia, is spreading terrorism and subversion and sabotage everywhere. That's the forever war is what Iran wants. And they're bringing us to the brink of nuclear war.
Netanyahu says killing the Iranian leader will be the end of the conflict, but it could also be the beginning of the conflict because the next Ayatollah could be even nastier. The White House is thinking right now is it's the Ayatollah you know versus the Ayatollah you don't know. That's not to say Trump couldn't decide to swoop in and do some gigantic action.
It's like that's what they really want. They want the United States to go in there and calm things down and take out one of them or take out Iran or whatever it is that they're doing. And they just keep pushing us to help them out. Jesus.
Trump already rejected Israel's original plan for regime change, but he wants Khomeini to know that he's the one keeping him alive. Quote, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader's hiding. He's an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers."
Like, Trump doesn't know how to talk like a president, like politician. He says it straight up, kill. You got to give Trump credit. You cannot mix his words. He just puts it out there straight up what he's thinking. That's crazy.
Soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Trump says the Iranians missed the opportunity of a lifetime.
I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. Their cities have been blown to pieces. They've lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them, do the deal.
Trump always wanted a deal, but Netanyahu, after October 7th, had decided he was going to strike Iran anyway, with or without the United States, regardless of whether we were negotiating. Netanyahu even asked Trump for the bunker busters, but Trump said no and was focused on signing a deal, but began to feel the Iranians were stringing us along. And after they missed their deadline and the clock ran out, he let Israel go hard the very next day. And now Trump has a big decision to make. The U.S. and Israel control the airspace over Iran. Their proxies have been gutted. Our sanctions are strangling the country, and Israel's conducting sabotage and espionage activity inside of their borders.
That's crazy how they got to ask for permission from the United States to do anything. Like, what are we, like the big fathers? They really got to wait on us, I guess, because we're supplying them with all the weapons and ammunitions.
U.S. naval assets have surged into the region, encircling the regime in the Arabian Sea, the Gulf, and in the Mediterranean. Sources say B-52s are stationed in the Indian Ocean within striking distance of Iran. And Trump says this country cannot have a nuclear weapon.
It's very simple. You don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon. Or what are you looking for here? An end. A real end, not a ceasefire. An end. So something that will be permanent. Yeah. Or giving up entirely. Is that okay too? Are you close there? Is that possible? Is that possible in the next 24 hours? Certainly.
Again, I love the fact that he says it straight up what he wants. You can't mince his words or try to figure out what he's trying to say. He is saying it. Come on now. This got to end now.
Possible. Complete give up. That's possible.
Trump's orchestrating a massive pressure campaign to ensure the Iranians never get a nuke. Politico says it's the most consequential decision of his presidency. The Trump administration doesn't want to barrel into risky missions or regime changes, but they recognize there's a historic window of opportunity to solve a problem that's vexed U.S. presidents for decades: how to fully eliminate the Iranian nuclear program. Does the president authorize American pilots to fly B-2 bombers over Iran and drop a series of bunker busters on Fordow, the underground Iranian nuclear facility? Or does he let the Israeli air campaign put Khomeini under so much pressure that he crawls back to the negotiating table and signs away his nuke program peacefully?
Yeah.
Trump met with his national security team earlier today and is carefully deliberating. The president just finished a call with Netanyahu this afternoon and is keeping all options on the table. He's considering dispatching J.D. Vance and negotiator Steve Witkoff to the region, while also getting assets in place if he decides to strike. Israel can't eliminate the Iranian nuclear threat by themselves. They have their own bunker busters, but none of them are powerful enough to pierce 300 feet deep underground. There's only one bomb for the job, and we have it: the MOP. The massive ordnance penetrator weighs 30,000 pounds. It's so heavy that it can only be lifted by an American B-2 bomber. And once it drops, it explodes horizontally and vertically. We've been working on it for 20 years. Trump tested one during his first term, and it's fully operational. We've used variations of bunker busters in the past, in the Iraq War, to destroy deep Iraqi command centers, and then in the Afghanistan War to target al-Qaeda caves. They look like this.
No, there's a real weapon.
Using bunker busters against Iran's nuke sites doesn't come without a risk. The Iranians,
And that was 2015, 10 years ago. So you can only imagine the progress they've done.
have stated that if the United States does take offensive action against them, they'll target U.S. bases and the U.S. Navy in the region. If we decimate their nuke site, we'll take away their only leverage, and they could lash out unpredictably. A dirty bomb, suicide bombers, assassination attempts. Who knows? We'd have to deal with the consequences. The United States targeting Iran's nuclear facilities doesn't necessarily lead to regime change. It could domino into regime change, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee it. The commander-in-chief has campaigned against regime change and expensive quagmires, but in the first term, he wasn't shy about taking decisive action, to eliminate threats when opportunities presented themselves, striking Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, and bombing ISIS off the map. No one in the administration is considering putting boots on the ground. That's what we think. But bunker busters against Iranian nuke sites would be a bold and dramatic escalation. J.D. Vance says whatever he decides, Trump will make the right call. Quote, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy, but I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue. And having seen this up close and personal, I can assure you that he is only interested in using the American military to accomplish American people's goals. Whatever he does, that is his focus. Former Pentagon official and U.S. Army combat veteran.
I think J.D. Vance is going to be our next president. 2028 J.D. Vance. I'm going to say it now. And this man knows how to talk, how to think clearly. So putting his thoughts out there, that's going to be the next guy. Watch.
Veteran Alex Plitzas joins me now. All right, Alex, what are the options here for the president?
Take them all out.
Thanks so much for having me. So the options for the president are multifold, but realistically, as you mentioned in the opening, given the problem set that's in front of us, the U.S. maintains the only real weapon systems that are capable of really destroying or severely degrading the Fordo underground facility, which is really the last remaining significant target in the nuclear problem set that hasn't been dealt with. So, as you mentioned, potentially delivered by B-2 bombers, and that facility, if the Israelis were to hit it by themselves with the capabilities they have, they could potentially maybe collapse the tunnels, the air shafts, or try to entomb the facility, but they don't have the same capability. And when they're already committed to this campaign, as you mentioned, the president now has a dilemma that he's facing in terms of a policy decision as to whether or not to assist them and sort of put an end to this problem. We found out the other day from the IAEA report that the Iranians were in fact, cheating on their responsibilities, and there were clandestine weapons activities taking place. And so can they ever be trusted really to enter good faith negotiations again? So the president has a very difficult decision in front of him right now.
So if he does decide to use the B-2 with the bunker buster, what could Iran do to retaliate after that?
Nothing.
That's an excellent question. So they've already openly threatened to attack U.S. facilities in the region. We have U.S. troops that are still based in Iraq and in Syria. And then we have U.S. bases throughout the region, from Bahrain to Saudi Arabia to the UAE to Qatar, et cetera. And so their ballistic missile capabilities still remain in terms of large stocks, but the Israelis have been decimating the launchers, which is really the choke point, and that's what is used to launch the ballistic missiles that have been going after Israel. So they've got a significant drone stock that's left. And then you don't know what else they have at this point, whether it's sleeper cells, if they decide to turn to transnational terrorism. In the immediate aftermath, it would likely be targeting of U.S. bases in the region, but that would then be inviting further U.S. military responses. So the Iranians also have to be careful, because at some point there's a balance of power tipping point where if they expend too many of their capabilities or invite too many attacks on themselves, then it may become subject to regime change, or at least vulnerable to some sort of action internally. Which, as you mentioned, is not something that the president is seeking. The president does not want to get back into nation and state building, that we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere that was extremely costly. So all of that is likely weighing into the calculus right now.
So if the Israeli military, with the help of the U.S. Air Force, controls the skies over Iran, could they insert Israeli commandos, and those commandos undertake an operation to destroy this underground nuclear facility? That's crazy.
They too scared to do that?
That's a great question. We would refer to that as heroic means of putting a ground commando force in. The Israelis did strike into Syria, into a chemical weapons facility there about 200 kilometers north of Israel. So there's precedent for it. The distance is much greater. It's about 1,200 miles, 1,200 kilometers, so adding about an additional 1,000 kilometers to it. That's not without risk. Obviously, putting ground personnel in there, God forbid somebody's captured or killed, that certainly puts extra risk and definitely could aggravate the situation further. So it's probably the least ideal of all the options on the table. That's, again, one of the options that's there. But at that point, the Israelis are going to have to decide, if the U.S. isn't involved, if they want to take that risk, or if they want to go from there only. Because as you mentioned, they have gained both air superiority and and were able also to take out the surface-to-air missile threat. So between the two, they really do have an option on the table to do it, but it's probably the least likely of all the options.
And do you think that the sustained air campaign by the Israeli military could be sufficient enough to force the Ayatollah to send his negotiators back and say, we'll give it up? We're going to stop enrichment. We'll let go of all of these facilities. We'll bring in inspectors and we'll get it out of the country. Is that still a possibility?
Send in Americans.
You know, that's an excellent question. There's an estimate of somewhere between 1,800 to 2,000 ballistic missiles left, plus the launchers, which is really the main leverage point, plus the drones. So if the Israelis continue to strike and they're able to suppress that remaining threat and the regime is put under more pressure, perhaps they come back to the table and negotiate. But as we've seen from Gaza with Hamas, they've been hanging on for a long time now, despite severe Israeli attacks and assaults trying to get them to capitulate at the negotiating table. So the Israelis certainly have the ability to deliver those blows. The regime at every opportunity has chosen the absolute wrong answer from before 10/7 until now. They've been presented with opportunities and they have simply managed to choose the wrong path every single time.
All right, Alex, excellent analysis. Thank you so much for your expertise. We really appreciate it.
No doubt.
Well, another Democrat in handcuffs. Right back.
Well, there you have it. Trump is now the peace man around the world. He's trying to do peace everywhere he goes. He's going to be known as just the peace president. All right? Peace no matter what. No more killings, no more wars around the world. It's crazy that's all he wants. Everybody to stop killing each other. And then here in America, we got politicians going to jail. Let me fast forward, check it out. What is this, a commercial? Border Patrol? Let me mute the sound because I don't want to get copywritten. But yeah, we got politicians now, Democrats, fighting over illegal immigrants getting deported. Let them all get deported.
Loving it. Most people support closing the southern border, support deportations, and support Donald Trump deploying the National Guard to quash the riots. Look at that. No one's even buying the hoaxes anymore. Remember the Maryland dad? Even Democrat voters now are like, yeah, he's probably MS-13. But that's not going to keep the media from hoaxing. The Media Research Center found that legacy media mentioned mostly peaceful protests over 200 times. They mentioned riots once. LA's mayor doesn't care if her city's on fire because she admits she's addicted to cheap foreign workers.
The disruption and the fear that has been caused by the raids has really had a devastating effect and has been a body blow to our economy.
What is she trying to say? That this is a reaction to all the army men showing up? No, it's not a legal reaction. This is crazy.
I don't think the president understands that we have entire sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor.
Wait a second. Democrats said illegals weren't here to take our jobs. And now they're saying the economy won't function without them? Democrats have called ICE agents Gestapo thugs so many times, they're getting death threats and their families are going into hiding. So some agents are choosing to wear masks during sweeps to protect their identity from Antifa or cartels. But for the first time ever, Democrats want Americans to take off the masks.
People covering their faces, impersonating police officers, it erodes trust in law enforcement and it undermines community safety. And so we're requiring that people not have to wear masks except for some very limited exceptions, and that there be identifying information.
These are police officers that they don't want to put their information out into the public. The hell is this guy talking about?
That we know who is involved here.
These politicians would rather put ICE agents' lives at risk than deport criminal aliens. They let rioters trash their own town, and now they want you to pay for it.
Yeah.
I am demanding full accountability and reimbursement for the local costs incurred, including injuries to local officers and damages caused by the chaos unleashed when the Trump administration recklessly.
No, the chaos is unleashed because we got these illegal migrants and whoever else is jumping in there to fight the cops. That's the real problem.
Recklessly deploy the military and ICE agents into our communities. They are the ones who created this unrest, and they are the ones that need to foot the bill.
Back in D.
The finger pointing. What the hell is she doing? No, people don't believe you no more. They're not the ones. You are the ones supporting these maniacs going out into the street fighting cops.
D.C., Senator Padilla, you remember the no-name senator who was detained for screaming and lunging at Kristi Noem? He cried today.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees.
Why is he crying?
And then flat on my chest.
Man up.
And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway.
Beta male, stand up, man. Grow some bones.
Repeatedly asking, why am I being detained?
You're a beta male.
Not once did they tell me why. I pray you never have a moment like this.
Padilla put on quite a show last week, and other Democrats want to get in on the action. Everybody wants their mugshot just like Trump.
Another one.
In New York City, Brad Lander, who's running for mayor, has been hanging out outside immigration courtrooms for weeks, just waiting for ICE to show up so he can be Biden migrants' human shield.
Finally.
Well, today, his wish came true.
Wait. Guys, back up, guys, back up.
I will let go. For one guy, all of that for one guy.
Step back. Please, step back, guys, step back.
One illegal immigrant.
You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
Brad was arrested for interfering with an ICE operation, but he says he didn't break the law. He was just holding hands.
All I tried to do was just hold Edgardo's arm and ask the ICE agents, do you have a warrant? And they would not show me the warrant. And I said I'd let go of his arm as soon as they showed it to me, and they did not show it to me.
Brad knows
another beta male. Come on now, we need some grown men in the room.
ICE doesn't need a warrant to arrest an illegal. He just wants headlines to help him win an election. Meanwhile, in Newark, New Jersey, activists are flinging themselves onto moving ICE vans.
Stop! You're gonna run her over!
What the hell?
Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Don't kill me!
Step on the gas. Step on the gas. Where's that lady's husband to take that woman out of there? Karen.
Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Congressman, what kind of effect are these politicians having on ICE operations when they're trying to get arrested?
Look, I think that it's directly interfering with an ICE operation. And what I can also tell you, Jesse, is that from what I'm seeing, this is going to backfire, especially with the Hispanic demographic that largely voted in favor of President Trump's pro-illegal immigration deportation policy. What I can tell you is everything that I'm seeing right now, Jesse, is these Democrat politicians want to use this to fundraise off of, want to use it for their voter base. But really, in actuality, what they're doing is they're enabling the Communist Chinese Party that has their hands all over the funding these riots. And really, if they want to investigate someone, look at Neville Singham to pay back those bills for Los Angeles for all of the riots damaging that's been caused.
Yeah, can you believe we're now going to be on the hook for an LA riot because the mayor gave a stand down order to the LAPD? How insane is that?
Crazy.
It's completely insane, Jesse. But what I will also tell you is that Congress isn't going to vote for them to get a refund for that funding, that they actually helped to cause more of damage for the people of Los Angeles. What I can tell you, Jesse, is that Neville Singham is actually the one that's been bankrolling all of these operations, and that's why Congress is investigating them.
Good. And they shouldn't pay a dime. The mask, they want them off for the first time in 6 years. Maybe the ICE agents should just say they're trying to stop the spread.
I mean, look, yes, exactly to your point. These are the same Democrat politicians that forced people to wear masks. Otherwise, they couldn't see their loved ones passing away in the hospitals or getting married. I think it's completely hypocritical. But look, the same Democrat politicians that are trying to say that ICE is all Anglo-Americans are completely false. ICE is actually predominantly 50% Hispanic. So really what they're doing is they're using these policies to race bait Americans into thinking that this is somehow Hispanic versus white, when in actuality it's not. Hispanic Americans support these policies as well. And they're trying to effectively dox Hispanic ICE workers and Border Patrol agents, which is completely unacceptable.
Congresswoman, that is such a great point. I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to steal that point and tell Jessica tomorrow on the 5. When men
50% of Border Patrol is Hispanic.
Right. I mean, it's a great point. They're putting their lives in danger. Federal workers who they're there to protect, they say. When men cry at work, or when men cry on national TV like Senator Padilla, is that an attractive look?
No, it's the worst.
No. In fact, I think he's suffering from low T, especially being that he actually lunged at a woman, which is why he was apprehended.
Right. Could you imagine if a Republican senator lunged at a female cabinet secretary and started screaming at her? It would be the war on women all over again.
Real men don't do that. And the fact that he did, I think, is telling as to who he is as an individual, and vehemently condemn what he did to Secretary Noem. To her credit, she actually did, I think, calm what happened and separately exchange numbers with him from what I had heard. But I would advise her to stay away from him, because someone like that's going to use this as a political talking point to get reelected. The guy's not a good dude.
Yeah.
A lot of these politicians, they like to pretend they're actors or actresses and just play for the camera. That's it. Cameras are on. Let me do my scene. That's all they got in their mind.
She had to give her number. He was like, here's my number. Get away from me, creep. Oh, man. Poor Padilla. No one knew who he was. He's just not that famous. Great to see you, Congresswoman. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Breaking news on the 2020 election. Wow.
This sounds crazy, but yeah, we have so many actors and actresses. Like AOC is another one. And the whole squad, all those females, they just pretend in front of the cameras. Like when the cameras are on, they start acting like Karen. Really, really disgusting to see. No serious politician will act like that. But let me fast forward to the next section here. But let me know what you think. Oh, and by the way, if you're still watching, give the video a like, right? Let's try to get this out to more and more people. And all I'm asking people to do is give the video a like.
1,000 licenses at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. These were scannable with credible barcodes. Some even had the same photo and bio slapped onto them. Thankfully, they foiled the plot. 20,000 ballots could have had a big impact. Remember, Biden won Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, all within that range. It's easy to understand why Beijing wanted Joe. They had the whole Biden family on their payroll. Meanwhile, Trump's squeezing Chinese heads against the walls with tariffs. But why are we just finding out about this now? The FBI got this intel before the election, and instead of investigating it further, they buried it. Former director Chris Wray even testified to Congress, and instead of saying the word China, he just screamed Russia, Russia, Russia.
The intelligence community's consensus is that Russia continues to try to influence our elections, primarily through what we would call malign foreign influence, primarily to denigrate Vice President Biden.
If this was a Moscow fake ID plot to help Trump, Wray would have held a press conference. He should be hauled back to Washington to testify immediately. Yeah. If Democrats actually care about democracy, they'd want answers. And the media is complicit too. Reuters ran their own fact check saying no evidence the licenses were meant to influence the election. Here's MSNBC's quote: Trump's lie about Chinese election interference is debunked. Its effects still linger. We'll see if they issue a correction. Cash's FBI has turned over all the documents to Senator Chuck Grassley for him to review. The story's far from over. Trump's consumed in one of the most consequential moments of his presidency: nukes, oil, casualties, Mideast strategy. The stakes are high, and the Republican Party is having an open debate. But the Democrat Party is nowhere to be found. They've gone silent. during an historical moment. We're the leading foreign policy voices of the Democrats.
The Democrats don't have a leading voice, all right? They don't have a main Democrat person that could go in front of a camera and talk like a normal human being, like to talk real ideas.
Democrat Party, the strategists, the hawks, the doves, anybody. Does anybody have an opinion? Democrats don't know what to say because they have to be told what to say.
Yeah.
And no one's telling them. We haven't heard a word from Hillary, Obama, Biden, Kamala, not even Susan Rice or Blinken, Kerry. Where are all these people? While Trump tries to manage wars overseas, Democrats are trying to kick off a civil war here at home.
We don't have kings here. We don't have monarchs and queens and dictators.
Look what they're trying to do. Keep calling Trump king. Confusing people, making people think that Trump is trying to be a king when he's not. They can see it. Only the Democrats are calling him king.
Dictators. Democracy is the system which advances the idea that every single person matters and we all rise together. The opposite of that is a corrupt, monarchical, or dictatorial system. And that's what we've got now. It's a gangster.
No, it's not what we got now. All right, you guys keep yapping at the mouth, talking nonsense. We don't believe you.
State. He's pivoting to just make it a war against democratic cities. That's much more of an agenda to create a political civil war in America.
Ilhan Omar says she feels like she's back in Somalia.
I grew up in a dictatorship, and I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that.
She should go back to her dictatorship. She's in this country, hating this country. How did she get so far in life? Insane.
To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world, to now be turned into one of the worst countries, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade. And we should all collectively be out in the streets rejecting what is taking place.
It was just.
That's all they do. Ask people to go out into the street. Send out people to go take a hit for them. You go out on the street. What the hell is she talking about?
Just a parade, babe. Grab a flag, sing the anthem. But you can't do that in her party. If you step out of line, you're toast.
I have absolutely. I've taken a hit with from the base. I'm not sure why Democrats would boo a fellow Democrat, but that's their prerogative now. And now with that military parade, again, there was no goose stepping. And now, first of all, let's say stop ever comparing anything to the Nazis and those kinds of things. That's crazy. And now remember, that's our soldiers. That's, this is not an occupying force. This is a 250, anniversary for the Army. I don't understand why that's controversial.
Stephen A., who lives outside the bubble, breaks it down like this.
Yeah, people talk about no kings, no kings. He's not a dictator. This is not an authoritarian regime. But that's why he's trying to make it like, well, really? That's why the state's suing him. That's why he's losing some of these cases in court. Last time I checked, you're in a position of power. You try to get your way. Somebody sues you. They fend you off by going through our court system. The court system makes a ruling. And as a result, it shows that our system works.
Common sense.
What is Trump doing differently than what he campaigned on? You may not like it. That's why you win the election, so he's not in a position to do it.
Former Speaker of the House, K-Mac, is here. All right, K-Mac, so we could be on the brink of war in the Middle East, but the Democrats say we're on the brink of war here at home. Why?
They are leaderless. I mean, think about just a couple clips you put in there.
Yeah.
Raskin, who said he's fighting for democracy, but what democracy are they fighting for? They're actually fighting for illegal behavior. They're criticizing President Trump for securing a border and holding up laws. Then you put Ilhan Omar, who literally said September 11th, something happened that day, like it was no big deal. She's always criticized this country that was so kind, that opened up her arms and let her become a citizen.
Yeah.
This is what's amazing to me. This is why this party is so far gone. This is why you just saw in Florida, the Senate Democrat leader left the party. You're watching people, Fetterman, he's getting criticized because he stood up to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary. America's 250th anniversary is next year. Will the Democrats criticize the country for being 250 years old if we celebrate it? Will they criticize the 4th of July? If Trump's a part of it, they have Trump syndrome. They will. They have lost sight, and they do not realize why the American people voted against them.
How would you feel about your party, I guess, interfering in federal law enforcement, getting arrested on purpose, the politicians?
Well, it shows right there they only want attention from that. To have a senator charge a sitting cabinet woman, and he got moved out by a guy who looked like he was 5'9". He never made the football team. That guy was never on the line. What, he's like 6'4", and this guy just pushed him straight out. That's embarrassing to start with. But why would you even behave that way? And you're a U.S. senator of a state that's most populous, and no one knows who you are. You're just trying to have a show, and then you go cry about it. Look, the country has made a decision in the last election. What President Trump is dealing with right now is exactly what you watched Kennedy in the Cuba crisis. You know, Henry Kissinger, before he died, he wrote this amazing article, and he used 3 numbers, 72, 72, and 9. 72 years since there had been a great war, 72 years since an atomic weapon has been used, and 9 countries with that capability. This isn't just about Iran getting a new nuclear weapon. If they get a nuclear weapon, there'll be 40 countries with it. President Trump is showing the leadership and why he got elected, but he's putting America first. And more importantly, he's looking for the future generations to make sure America's still strong.
All right, K-Mac, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you hit a protester with your car?
So yeah, we got Trump as the peaceful president. The man is really, really trying to do his best to bring peace into this country. Before moving on, let me read some of the comments here, because some of them do have a point. For example, we got a message here. It says, was Ilhan Omar still allowed to be in the U.S.? That's an enemy combatant and needs to be booted out of Congress. She really does need to be booted out of Congress. What is she doing? All she do is trying to get us to fight and try to destroy this country from within, because that's the only way this country can be destroyed. All other countries are too far, and we got an ocean in between us. So it got to be done from in between. And she's a person that we got to get rid of. All right, so shout out to John4874 for the comment. What else we got here? It's illegal and those looking for a handout against working tax-paying Americans. Yes, that's all they want, a handout. Again, this is part of the propaganda trying to destroy this country from within. We got to be ready and just know that they're trying to destroy us. Okay? What else we got here? One last message. A lot of Democrats. Yes. All right, let me fast forward to the next section here. I'm Jesse Waters, Primetime. And the final segment.
And drag you through the streets.
Let's bring in Carly Shimkus, who is not a lawyer. She's a very fast driver, though.
Okay, so that is the...
Oh, wait. Here we go.
If you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the streets.
Let's bring in Carly Shimkus, who is not a lawyer. She's a very fast driver, though.
Okay, so that is the exact reason there are fewer mass protests in Florida than there are in California, because people generally want to keep their legs. I consider myself to be a nonviolent person, so I could never see myself hitting the gas, as annoying as these protesters are.
What if they're surrounding your car? And banging on the windows, and you felt like they were going to come in, grab you, and pull you out and beat the snot out of you?
I know. That's the question, and that's clearly what happened in the California video. I do have a caveat to my protest rule of nonviolence. If a protester glues themselves to something,
yes,
and that happens a lot, especially in Europe, a police officer, and they always try and do this, they should never try and remove the adhesive. You just let that protester stick there until they're hungry, and then they rip the Band-Aid off themselves.
What if they glue themselves to your car? What do you do?
Right? Yeah, I guess you go, okay, sit down on the car.
And you know what? If I'm a driver and I got my family in the back of the car, I'm sorry. For our safety, me and my family's safety, I'm going to step on the gas and just drive away. Ain't no way I'm going to try to use logic to survive such a scenario.
Car, and we're going to go for a ride.
You just hit the.
You are now a part of my vehicle.
You're the hood ornament.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, crotch alert. Hall of Famer Terry Bradshaw got a pat down at the airport, and he's not happy.
Okay, I'm all for my luggage is TSA scan, everything. First of all, they got to go through my luggage now. I'm the uniform.
He later posted that he was searched again after that one. He has 4 Super Bowl rings, Carly.
So clearly that TSA agent's not watching a whole lot of football because that's clearly Terry Bradshaw. And it's funny because there's a woman, if you watch the whole video, who's on the phone and was with him. And she's on the phone. She's going, they patted down every inch of his body. And that was before they took him to the back room to do even more screening.
That poor
guy.
agent. Wait, was it the guy? Was it?
At least they are fair. Everybody gets pat down. Because if you've been on the plane, I've been on the plane, they take you to the back room and they pat you down. So thank you for taking that hit for the team, showing us that everybody gets patted down.
A female or a male agent?
I saw a male agent.
Oh, Terry.
I saw a male agent in the video.
We
I don't know
feel
who's in the
terrible
back
for
room.
you. They didn't recognize you, and you got a male pat down.
He was a good sport about it, though.
He was a good sport, but they shouldn't be treating Terry like a terrorist.
Come on.
He's an American hero.
He sure is. He's a
All right, we're going to leave it right there. But yeah, thank you for taking a hit for the team. We all get treated equally, so you don't feel like you're the only one getting patted down. Even celebrity, the guy with 4 Super Bowl rings and is getting patted down. Hey, thank you for taking one for the team. But we got a peaceful president, President Trump, going to the Middle East and calming things down. All right, letting people know that they got to stop fighting, stop arguing, and just stop killing people. I mean, you got to agree with the man. At the end of the day, the man deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. But that's what I'm going to say about that part. And the Democrats, stop going to jail to save illegals. Undocumented people that came to this country and need to go back to their country. Let's be honest, I'm Hispanic. And I'm telling you, I came here legally. I had to make a line and apply and pay money. And we don't like the fact that all these illegal people that skipped the line got in here illegally and they're getting all these benefits. Be honest. Comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. If you're still watching, give this video a thumbs up before you go anywhere. All right? Let me go check it out. And with that said, I got to fix my cameras a little bit off and get things going. Again, give it a thumbs up and hopefully you enjoyed the video. With that said, see you on the next one.